enforcement unit, better known as SAFE, shut down a home at 127 Old Brook Road in Springfield. This house was used as a strategic location for a violent drug distribution organization. While the investigation remains ongoing, the weeks-long investigation resulted in 2 significant arrests and the shuttering of a high-level heroin distribution point. I announced the arrests of the following individuals as it stands in connection with this investigation. Nathaniel Diaz, 23, of Springfield, has been charged with trafficking in heroin, unlawful possession of a firearm, carrying a loaded firearm, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, possession of ammunition without a license, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon with a motor vehicle, 4 counts, leaving the scene of property damage, 2 counts, reckless operation of a motor vehicle, speeding, marked lanes violations, failure to stop at red light, and a failure to stop for police, as well as malicious destruction of property in the order of 2 counts. Also arrested was Jose Rivera, 42 years old, of Springfield. He has been charged with possession of ammunition without a license. Both of these suspects and others came under the scrutiny of the SAFE unit as a continuation of the unit's highly successful investigation of the Knox Street gang, which was entitled Operation Knocks Out. While the street gang was decimated in a wide-ranging investigation that resulted in over 14 arrests in early 2021, there are remnants and spin-offs of the gang that still exist. Investigators became aware that known members of the Knox Street gang have been operating out of a safe house, at 127 Old Brook Road in the city of Springfield. The residence is located in very close proximity to 2 schools, an elementary school and a high school, and also very close to the East Forest Park Library in the city of Springfield. The home was being used as a safe house, hangout, and a distribution point for narcotics. Investigators believe these suspects traveled out of state and trafficked in large amounts of heroin, which would then be broken up and distributed in smaller amounts to street-level distribution networks from this house and other locations in the region. Our focus on known public safety threats will not waver. There is no place in any neighborhood for this kind of threat to the public safety, health, and well-being. We will not tolerate their attempts to profit from the scourge of addiction and the violence that necessarily comes with this undertaking. These things undermine the basic quality of life and safety of decent, hardworking women, men, and their families who have to live around this ongoing threat. My office, the Hampden District Attorney's Office, its SAFE unit, and our law enforcement partners will be relentless in removing these threats wherever and whenever they endeavor to compromise public safety. Nathaniel Diaz was arrested at approximately 11:55 in the evening on Tuesday, February 24, 2022, after authorities became aware he was in the process of traveling to acquire a large quantity of narcotics. On Tuesday night, investigators attempted to perform a motor vehicle stop based on probable cause and arrest Diaz in the area of Warner Street in Springfield. Instead of stopping, however, he began to flee while operating his motor vehicle. As Diaz drove over curbs, he struck the driver's side of a Massachusetts State Police cruiser with a trooper occupying the vehicle. As he attempted to drive off the street, he struck another undercover vehicle in the front bumper area before striking a third undercover police vehicle head-on, which was occupied by 2 officers. All these committed and honorable law enforcement officers involved were unhurt and are doing well, I'm happy to report. Mr. Diaz then proceeded to strike a light pole, a fire hydrant, and a retaining wall at the corner of Warner Avenue and Locust Street in his desperate and dangerous attempts to flee. He then sped off, traveling down Main Street. Despite heavy damage to his vehicle, he was able to operate the car at very high speeds, in fact, in excess of 1. Mind you, again, this is on Main Street in the city of Springfield. He continued traveling down Main Street, where officers observed him driving on the opposite side of the road, again, Main Street, and into oncoming traffic, forcing motorists to pull over to avoid being struck, all while being pursued by police vehicles. Officers could also see him throwing various items from the car. One of the items recovered was a black bag in which there was a loaded firearm. Diaz continued traveling at a high rate of speed, traveling north on Main Street, where he committed numerous motor vehicle violations, including Marks Lane violation, failure to stop at red lights, and reckless operation. Diaz was finally stopped only after he crashed at 1860 Main Street, in fact, the Republican building, but was able to flee on foot. Investigators a short while later were able to locate Diaz while still on foot in the area of Mill Street, heading toward Locust. Diaz again began running away from officers, but he was eventually apprehended and placed under arrest after this extraordinarily dangerous pursuit, both to officers and the general public. Located during a canvass conducted by officers of the area where Diaz was observed to be throwing objects from his vehicle was the aforementioned loaded firearm in the black bag and about 51 half bags of what is suspected to be heroin, equaling 2,550 small or street level bags of, what is believed to be heroin. Later on in the afternoon on Wednesday, February 23rd, members of the SAFE unit executed a search warrant at 127 Old Brook Road. As a result of this warrant, ammunition was located in a safe in the residence. Located there was Jose Rivera, who was arrested for possession of ammunition without a license. Both suspects have been observed frequenting and operating out of 127 Old Brook Road during the course of this investigation, thereby putting law-abiding members of the public at risk through their illegal and high-risk activities. Approximately 1 year ago, I formed the Strategic Action and Focused Enforcement Unit, better known as SAFE, to explicitly focus on highly violent individuals who pose serious threats to life, order, and community in Hampden County. We continue, and we will continue on this mission. The unit is comprised of members of law enforcement from the Massachusetts State Police, U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or ATF, Homeland Security Investigations, Hampden County Sheriff's Department, and the Holyoke, West Springfield, and East Longmeadow Police Departments, who work with me and high-level prosecutors on my team to execute on these high-level investigations that we believe and we know have a significant positive impact on public safety in this region. The General's Office, the Violent Fugitive Apprehension Section of the Massachusetts State Police, and Gang Unit of the Mass State Police, and the Hampden County Narcotics Task Force, who assisted with this investigation and the resulting takedowns in the last several days. I want to make particular thanks to Sergeant Liam Jones of the Massachusetts State Police, assigned to my office, Detective Lieutenant Sean Marr, assigned to my office from the Mass State Police, and Assistant District Attorney Carrie Beatty in my office, who played extraordinary roles in making this investigation successful. We look forward to prosecuting these individuals, continuing this investigation, and others that will have an impact on public safety in this region. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are you expecting more arrests to be made in the near future?
It's quite possible, yes.
All you found in the house was ammunition?
It's correct. Other paraphernalia, but with respect to criminal evidence, it was ammunition with which Mr. Rivera was charged.
How did you initially get onto this location? And was it a surprise to find that sort of activity happening in a neighborhood that's not associated with violent drug crime?
Paul, with respect to how we figured it out, I'm not going to speak specifically to that. There's a number of ways that investigators became aware of these individuals in that location. I wouldn't say it was any sort of surprise. We know that individuals engaged in this kind of activity are looking for places where they think they can fly under the radar and not be seen. So, we've seen this kind of activity and these kinds of operations in various places, and wherever it occurs, we're going to seek them out, and we're going to bring lawful and potent investigations and arrests.
So you described earlier that there's kind of like this group that you took down today, or this week, grew out of a vacuum created by Knox Street gang being taken down.
I wouldn't say it grew out of a vacuum, but these individuals were a part of that Knox Street group, loosely organized as it was. The core of that group, through the many arrests that were made, were not obviously arrested as a part of the original piece of Operation Knox Out, but investigators in my office were aware that these individuals were still around, still committing crimes. So, an opportunity arose, and this investigation was launched 8 or 10 weeks ago.
Okay.
How are we aware of how they were able to obtain that much heroin?
I'm sorry?
Are we aware of how they were able to obtain the narcotics?
So as I mentioned, their sort of playbook was acquiring the narcotics and trafficking it out of state. I think both in the acquisition as well as the distribution of narcotics. I'm not going to speak to exactly where that came from, but they did not operate exclusively in Hampden County or Springfield. They were moving both, again, in acquiring drugs and selling the drugs in different states in the New England region.
Are we expecting them to be facing charges in other states?
Not that I'm aware of. It's always possible, and we work closely with those other states, but I don't know that anything is in the chute right now.
Is there something to say, like, with these types of operations being in, like, client neighborhoods, like, recently there's been also, other drug busts in Western Massachusetts?
As I said in my remarks, I mean, wherever this happens, we're concerned about it. We know there's good, hardworking, law-abiding folks in every neighborhood across Springfield, across Hampden County. This was in some ways unique, given that this neighborhood is usually home to that kind of thing. But many of our operations, much of our work is in neighborhoods in Holyoke and Springfield across the county. And again, wherever folks choose to break the law and compromise public safety and pose a threat to decent people, we're going to be there. Any other questions?